everybody. My name is Ilana Earhart. I am the business librarian with Jackson County Library Services, and I am going to share a few resources with you as we get started. So first, I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through some of the library website information, some of the databases that you're going to want to know about, and then head into our presentation for the night. Then we'll go into some FDO information. So here we go. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the library's homepage, and we are going to be updating our website fairly soon here. So I believe it's on the 19th. You're going to see a brand new website. It is easier to navigate, so I wouldn't worry too much about not being able to find things. If you do have a difficult time, please contact me, EERHARDT@jcls.org. And I can set up a time to Zoom with you, show you exactly how it all works. Okay, so one thing that you're going to want to know about is the upcoming programs. Since this is our last session, I want to make sure that you know where to go to find additional programs. If by chance you found this link on social media or somewhere else, this is where you can find it on the library's website. And again, I can update that information with you if you'd like when the library website changes. So we can see right here, this is the session we're in, and we can scroll through and see everything, or go through and look at the categories. So are you interested in civic information business, which would be me? Those are programs that I run. There's craft, community outreach, so much to look at and to join. And if you want to research, right up here, all databases. You're going to get to all the databases that we have at the library in alphabetical order, and you can choose by alphabet letter to see one particular part of our collection, or can clear that out and see it by subject. So there's business databases. And we're going to talk about a couple of those before we get into the presentation tonight. So Udemy is super awesome. It is a great resource for self-paced learning. It's a database that I've been telling you about at the beginning of our programs from just talking about it, and I wanted to give you a look inside. So I decided to search Grantwriting, and what came up is a lot of different choices about what you might like to look at, what do you want to listen to and learn from. So at the bottom here, you're going to see how many hours each one is. So you can make that decision about what time commitment you want. You can see if it's a beginner or intermediate. Wherever you feel like you are starting at, you can choose the right course for you. And so again, depending on what you think is best, you can scroll through. You can see there's a lot of different options. There are things that are directly related to intro to grant writing or some niche topic within skill building for grant writing. So awesome self-paced learning. Once we're done with this workshop series together, you can continue learning. And A to Z databases. I know there's a lot on the screen right now, so we're going to take it one little piece at a time. This is a great resource for finding different organizations that exist locally and nationally. So if you are wanting to find a particular business or a business type, this is where you want to go. It also supports job searching if you wanted to lead someone toward that at your organization. Find a person. And so let's take a look at the advanced search here. You can search through a lot of different indicators of category types. So if you wanted to search by geography, you have everything from everything in the state, or you could even choose to go by a map and draw lines of your own and find things within a certain area that you have personally defined. We can go into keyword and search that. You can do a NAICS code search, and I can talk to you more about that if you're curious. Business name and type, so many options. If you wanted to just look up businesses for the purpose of seeing, what it is they do, who are the people leading that organization, how many people work there, all that type of information. So another option for continued learning is our book list that contains a lot of different books based on getting to know all stakeholders within the grant writing process. So your stakeholders might be individual donors, they might be your funders, the recipients of the services that you provide. So these are all great books to dive into if you want to get to know in more detail the aspects of grant writing and how to manage different things as they come up as you go through your work. Okay, and our handout, we're going to say done there. I was sharing. Okay, is includes the slides that we're going to go through tonight, introduction to grant writing recordings, if you wanted to go back to that, all of the previous handouts. And I wanted to direct your attention to the further reading articles. So I picked out articles that are relevant to what we're going to be talking about. If you are curious about a specific topic within our discussion, you can go back to this list and learn a little bit more about it. And I can find additional articles for you if you'd like. So this is the request form for the Foundation Directory Online. If you wanted me to do some research assistance with you, go ahead and fill this out. It should take 5 to 10 minutes. A lot of the questions are very simple, and they're just there to help me understand what it is you're looking for and get you pointed in the right direction pretty quickly. So here is where we're going tonight. I'm going to get into full screen mode. So introduction to grant writing, putting it all together. So we'll go through revisiting the overview of what we've been talking about, and then dive into credibility, sustainability, and we'll finish up with an exploration of the FDO. So we'll also have a couple of Q&A options, as well as some like activities, and hopefully there'll be some main takeaways that you all can share with one another and maybe make some commitments to stay in contact with one another. So again, library resources, the books that you can check out, and Udemy. So we've built a solid base of knowledge to begin searching the FDO. And we're integrating frameworks of grant writing into our organizations, hopefully, as you're going through all of these sessions and taking that information back with you to the people you're working with to serve your communities. So again, what is grant writing? It's a process of learning about yourself and the communities that you serve. It's an opportunity to look at what partnerships you are nurturing, a process of seeking and maintaining partnerships with foundations whose missions align with your organization's mission. So we want to focus on that mission-driven grant-seeking process. Know who you are before you seek out assistance and funding. And so why are we looking for grant funding? So hopefully it is because you have identified an issue that affects specific communities and people, and you want to be part of the change that's needed to make a difference. You want to make the world a better place to live. So, and in doing that, you should, again, be following that mission that your organization has created. Maybe there's an opportunity to update that mission statement to what you're doing currently. And that's also a great addition to the change of your organization's story over time that you can communicate to funders. Here we go. And you want to be exploring who you are. So mission-driven grantsmanship, share an understanding of the beliefs, share understanding and beliefs about the mission statement. Your mission should be clear, universally understood, and current. Your organization's story should be clear, concise, and compelling. Your mission, vision, and values should relate directly to your programs, services at your organization. So the reason why you want to have all of this together and clear is when you have these mission statements and your vision and your values all current and accurate, that's going to guide your programs. And the funders that you are connecting with are going to be able to see whether your programs are kind of mismatched and maybe they're a little bit off topic, maybe to the original mission that your organization created. So that would be a little bit of a problem in showing a compelling need when your programs don't all follow the same line of reasoning. These statements are going to help guide all of that work into a clear pathway that the funders can see and understand and get on board with. So a mission statement is a shared understanding of your organization's culture and what you are doing for the communities you serve and why that is important. And partnerships. Create and nurture partnerships long before sending out proposals. Share resources, responsibilities, risks, and rewards. Demonstrate that you are dedicated to developing the relationships needed to find sustainable and creative solutions. And remember that there's a bit of a recipe to grant writing. It's less about writing and it's more about planning. So you might find yourself in a lot of conversations within your organization or within the group that you're working with on a specific project. And know your grant maker. Who are they? What are they looking for? What do they hope people will achieve through their grant making? So each funder has a mission of their own to fund specific types of projects in order to follow their own mission statement. And know about this before approaching them. Build a relationship with your chosen funders long before submitting a proposal. So a really great way to do this is to find all of the self-published materials that a funder has provided to the public. So first thing is going to be their website. If they have anything on social media, you want to follow that and be aware of it. If they have community programs available to nonprofit leaders to join those, get to know people, start conversations, all of that. Take advantage of anything that they put out that you can easily get access to. And follow the rules. So each funder is different. They may have very or slightly different rules about who they fund and how they want applications to come in and what formatting and all of those details. The rules vary. So one funder might require a particular thing while another funder may not even have that on their list, and be aware of that. And see the rules as non-negotiable. However, there is an asterisk there. You'll notice that there are differences between, for example, federal government grants and family foundation grants. So the rules may be a little bit, small bit negotiable with a family foundation. If you contact them and say, we can't fulfill this, but it looks like otherwise we're eligible to apply, what would you suggest? They may advise you on how to move forward. Whereas a government grant is very unlikely to have that interaction, if any interaction at all, before the proposal is submitted. And provide a new proposal for each funder. There are certain parts within the proposal that you can copy and paste, but don't ever submit the same full document to more than one funder. Okay, and then we'll kind of return to the overview. So this workshop series is an exploration of where you are and where you want to be. Through each workshop, we have been exploring the questions you need to be asking and how to begin the work of filling in the blanks. So we talked about how to get to know yourself. What are the details involved in that? So what is obviously your organization's name, the location, history, credibility, organization type, organization values and culture, and communicate the context and purpose that you are following as you're trying to work on your project and get it funded. So describe the specific need or the issue. So give a statistic, don't use jargon. People outside of your organization are less likely to know all the jargon that you know. State why your project is important. State who and where the people are that are going to be served. And your vision. What changes do you want to achieve? What will be different when you're done? What will success look like? When is the project finished? Is there a finish line, or is this a service that will continually need to be provided? And give these answers with numbers. And also, what partnerships are going to be involved in the project? Make sure that's really clear that you have partnerships within your community and that they are helping sustain the projects that your organization is working on. And your work plan. You want to have clarity around what's going to be done, how it's going to get done, by who. So some major things that you want to be aware of are what staffing needs are there? What are the logistics? What marketing and outreach are you going to engage in? How are you going to implement all of this? Is there a plan for that? Follow on. So what things are going to need to happen before the funding is received and will need to continue to happen after the funding is spent and after the project maybe is over? And how are you going to evaluate the impact that you made on the community that you're serving? And your partnerships. What organizations have a vested interest in working with your organization and the people and issues your organization addresses? So again, there are natural partnerships, organizations that do a similar thing to what you do, or that are kind of expected to collaborate traditionally and historically. And there are creative and unusual partnerships. So those are the ones that are not historically or traditionally known to work together, but maybe you have a need for similar resources that you could share. And your evaluation. What tools, data, information will you need to determine whether your programs have been successful? And document as you go. Have the process of collecting data be part of what you're already doing and not a separate thing that you have to go and run and do separately. So it's always great to have as much efficiency as you can with all of the work that you're doing. And your resources. What resources are needed in order to successfully complete all the steps in the project? So reflect back to the instances when we talked about logic models and how that helps categorize tasks and resources that led to completion of the project and fulfillment of your organization's mission statement. And your budget. So what is the approximate total cost if you had to pay for everything? So, and use the frameworks that we talked about to reassess the actual total cost of the project based on best practices. So one example, remember to look up the actual pay for a job in its industry if you're paying volunteers. Account for how much that would have cost if you were paying them in the real world within the industry that their work is relevant to. Identify where your project fits. What broad categories of community needs or opportunities does your project address? And each funder has a mission to serve communities in particular capacities. And they want to be able to hype up what it is they've been doing in partnership with their recipient organizations. What is the work that you're doing that matches their mission so that they can also share that with their stakeholder communities? And your summary. So after you've gone through all of this work to do the planning and the writing, you should be able to boil it all down to one sentence. And this is basically going to be your elevator pitch. So when you're doing your networking, when you're talking to people, connecting with people, this should be able to roll off the tip of your tongue in one sentence. What will you do? When are you going to do it? With whom? Where is this going to happen? Why are you doing it? And in order to do what? What's the change that's going to happen in the community? Okay, so let's get into Q&A. When I'm in presenting mode, I don't necessarily see what's in the chat, so let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so Karen, yeah, I did do a little bit of repeat because I know that there are some people who haven't been through this process before, and I'm throwing a lot of information at people. So that was the only repeat we're doing tonight. And I will let you talk. I'm going to turn on your mic. Hey there. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, fine.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted a chance, give you a chance to talk with me about, like, why we would go over any review. Do you have any questions?
I thank you for asking. I don't have any questions at the current moment. I really appreciate all of your recommendations. I did actually get the book, the the only grant writing book you'll ever need. I got that book and started reading it.
Nice.
Very appreciative. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that book I think is one of the most useful for people learning from just about any starting point. So it really is useful either as reading from cover to cover or as a reference manual. So yeah, I'm really happy that you got to pick that up, and we'll be getting another copy into the library soon. So I wonder, is there anybody else who would like to ask questions or anything come to mind as we're kind of finishing up the review part and going on to all the new information? Okay. Awesome. All right, so let's go on ahead to the rest of the program. There we go. So some things that you can be thinking about are, where are you or your organization right now? Where do you want to be? What are your main takeaways from the series? And again, trade contact information. I did send out a message with all the people who signed up on the contact sharing form. And so you should have all of that contact info. So send me a message if you did not add yourself to that and you would like to. I can send out an additional email with contact information from, excuse me, more of our attendees. Okay, so let's dive into a new topic. So what is credibility and sustainability? That is the information about your organization that gives funders reason to trust that you will use their grants wisely. And it's evidence of a plan to maintain funding for the project so it continues into the future. One thing that funders are often looking out for is a red flag that there is no plan for, through a particular organization, to keep their project running if it is meant to run for longer than the period of time when they might fund it. So if it just kind of dissolves into the dust, that's not something that funders want to see. So your proposal summary. So that's the very last thing that you write. Your proposal summary is not an introduction. It represents the entire proposal and it can be read instead of the entire proposal. And this is the first document that a funder reads, and it could be the only one that a funder reads. So remember, as we were talking about in an earlier part of this series, a lot of funders might be going through a pretty rigorous process of reviewing a lot of proposals in a short amount of time. Anything that's going to give them an opportunity to understand what is you're doing, why you're doing it, who your partners are, quickly, easily, efficiently, they're going to go for that option. So don't feel bad that your entire proposal might not be read from start to finish. It's really good that you have that all together and it is expected. So foundations of your proposal. So have your issue or need statement ready and have your outcome statement clarified. Get your summary put together from all the work that you've been doing. And everything else relies on these three pieces. So what is in a credibility statement? Your credibility statement is a source document. So this is one of the few things that you can copy and paste from one proposal to the next. Information about the applicant, so information about who you are, and information about about your story, your mission, and your vision. So what is your evidence of credibility? How are you going to show that to a funder? So describe how money will be used appropriately. So how will you be accountable with the money? Do you have evidence of how you've been accountable in the past and what tools you're going to use this time? What will you be, how will you be easy to work with? Do you have evidence of past partnerships with funders and how it was easy to communicate with them? And what is your process now? These things help determine if you are a good fit. So storytelling is a huge part of your proposal in showing who you are to the funder. So your credibility statement is a one-piece written document that tells your organization's story, talks about your past. How did you become who you are now as an organization? Your present. Who is that organization that you're talking about and that you are seeking funding for its projects now? What is the future that you see? And where do you plan to be in the coming years? Do you plan to change your services? Do you see some shifts in the community that you're serving that you're going to need to respond to? And is that going to change what your organization does? And your organizational culture and values. So what are the values that are most important to your group of colleagues? And this is your opportunity to control how your organization's story is told. So there may be any number of other folks in the community that have their own way of describing who your organization is and what you do. But this is you telling your story and shaping how the funder views you through your own words. And where are you going to tell that story? So there's a lot of different places where you can communicate about your organization. So there are volunteer recruiting materials. Your volunteers should know what organization they're working for and why that should matter to them. They're part of your stakeholders. And your board orientation and training should communicate who you are. Your press releases should not only communicate the basic things that you're doing, but also why that matters in the community that you're serving. Your website is a great place to talk about who you are. Your agency brochure. So when people walk into the doors of your organization, potentially after COVID, there should be information available to pick up and keep and walk away with to continue learning about where someone has just been and what they should know about the organization. And you'll need to provide evidence of your story. And this is necessary for every proposal that you submit to any funder. What should your story contain? So, when was your organization founded? Who were the key founders? Why did the key founders get involved? What was the primary need that you were serving and that you were founded to address? What are your key achievements and milestones? So, in the present day, what is your current mission statement? And did it change from what it was originally? That could be a really compelling story. What societal needs do you address currently? What are your current priorities? Who are your clients? And has that changed over time? What are your major programs, projects, and service areas? What are the primary objectives for each one of these? And what are the key needs for staff, training, facilities, and equipment? So what do you see in the future? So what are some likely upcoming trends that will change how you work and what you do? How will these trends change how you work? And what is your vision for the future? Are you going to change some of your services? Do you see major changes or do you see a slight shift? And what new service areas do you plan to take on? So what programs, services, clients? What will change in your needs for staff, training, facilities, and equipment? So what do grant makers want to see? The the broad overview of what they want to see is who were you when your organization was started? Who you've worked with over time. Maybe there are some former partners that you did some great work with that you're not working with right now, but that what you achieved together is still important. So what have you accomplished in the past? And what did it take to get all of that done? What your organization is still actively seeking to turn the dial. So that's going to be really important. Are you still working to serve communities in a way that's going to improve quality of life? And They want to know that you're working toward a sustainable future too, that your funding, again, is not going to run out or disappear, and you have a plan for where the money is going to come from in the future. So what information builds precedent for credibility? Your track record. So the community standing that you have, community service, strength as a prospective partner, all of these things are going to be really important, and we'll get into a little bit more detail as we go. So the precedent for credibility also is, if you're brand new, that's not necessarily a problem. So what resources do you have? The people on your board should have some experience and accomplishments to contribute to the story of the organization that is being built. And you can borrow credibility too. So if you are in a fiscal partnership, what was compelling to the organization that is in that fiscal partnership with you? What compelled them to take you under their wing? And you can show other types of partnership too. So what are the connections that are making your work possible, that have gotten you at least this far as you're continuing to move into the future and request funding? And your aspirations. Who do you want to be in the world as an organization that serves communities? And how are you showing up in the world? So this is the one place where your aspirations are really important, as you communicate how your work is going to continue into the future, and use facts to support what you're saying. So what work has been done, and use hard facts, things that you can prove. Is there evidence that you've accumulated over time of the work that has been done? And there's sometimes not so great stuff that has happened in organizations. And that also needs to be communicated about. So word travels in all types of communities. Whether you're in a rural area, a metropolitan area, it doesn't really matter. Word will get around in various communities. So it's also likely that if you know, others know too. And your funder might already know as they're reading your application. So how are you going to address that? Be really genuine. State exactly what happened. How did you fix it? What were the solutions that you used? What have you done to ensure that it's not going to happen again? And don't get stuck on the negative of how bad it was and how much time it took to fix, and all the, maybe it felt traumatic in some ways. Don't focus on that. Emphasize the positive aspects of what was gained through the recovery. And your sustainability. So how will your project be funded after this grant is spent? So other common terms for sustainability are continuation funding or future funding. And why ask funders about, why do funders ask about sustainability? So this isn't something that was always asked in the past. Funders generally used to select solely based on the perceived fit of an organization and their projects. And funders want to be able to point to a strong history of funding projects that survived over time and that have positive impacts on communities being served. And over time, funders have become more strategic. It's now standard to see questions about sustainability and how you're going to continue being funded in the future. And what do funders want to know? So funders want to know that the money that they give you will be used on a project that will last long into the future. They will not fund each of their they will not fund each of their chosen recipients indefinitely. So know that even if you've received funding from a grant maker, maybe 4 or 5 years in a row, there may come a time where that is going to end because they need to continue focusing on as broad a community as they can within their mission that they have set. So the funder is preparing to make a large investment, and they want to make sure that their money is not spent on a project that stops permanently due to a lack of funding. So you need to have a plan. The funder also sees recipients as partner organizations. If your organization becomes a recipient, the funder wants to know that you're working towards sustainability and that they can count on you as a communicative partner in serving communities. So again, being honest and authentic is one of your greatest strategies that you can employ. So don't let your worries take over. Prioritize telling your prospective funders the honest, authentic truth about everything they need to know. So sustainability details that you want to be thinking about. Create a specific written shared plan for future funding. Sit down with the stakeholders who are directly involved in the funding process, whether that is people working on crowdsourcing or people working on individual donor acquisition. Maybe you have someone who is solely dedicated to grant writing. Get all of those people together and see how you're going to make a plan for the next 12 months or as far out as you can reasonably commit to making a plan for. For one-time projects, describe how future maintenance will be covered. So the building that you're working in is going to need to have its lease or its mortgage paid over time. Once this one-time project potentially is finished, how is all of that going to continue into the future to make sure that your organization stays alive? Describe your other sources of funding that will support your project. Where is your funding coming from in different directions? And make sure that you're really clear on what those sources are. So getting your organization together to have that conversation is going to be important. Show internal support for future funding. So what are the internal resources that you're using? What volunteer and match support do you have? So this information provides evidence that the funder's support will be meaningful into the future as your project continues, and include letters of commitment whenever possible. What questions do you want to be asking? So will a program or project need to continue? Some of them do and some don't, depending on what the purpose is. Will a program generate revenue for itself? Are there other organizations you can share expenses with? And if you are seeking a capital grant, so a cash grant, how will you maintain and repair the building and equipment in future years? Potential sources of future funding could come from program-related income, private grant resources, government grant resources, fundraising, membership income, investment income, and there are other sources too. It's possible that the work that you're doing has a different income source in itself. So a bad example would be to continue X project beyond the end date to use funds date, project leaders will attempt every possible route to secure funds from other sources. Possible funds include revenue sharing and any other funding for which we might qualify. So this basically tells the funder, we don't know where the money is coming from. We haven't really looked into it. We don't have any relationships with future funders, and we're not working on it yet. So it's likely that money will run out and we won't have any revenue to cover it. And there could be a gap in services to community. And that's kind of a red flag to a lot of funders. A good example is a little bit more detailed and clarifies some of the things that funders want to know. So through research, our team has identified the following private and government sources for continuation funding. And you list those sources out. We have made preliminary contact with each prospective funder to clarify that we are eligible for funding under their guidelines and that our project matches their funding priorities. Through date, we will continue developing our relationships with these funders and will secure advance commitment where possible. Based on work completed, we will have a comprehensive plan for continuation funding that will support our project past the current closeout date within 12 months. So that is telling you where the money is coming from, that there is already research that has begun. Research will continue. There are relationships that are being built. There are relationships that are already established. And this project will not cease to continue. There won't be a gap in services, and this would be a pretty strong prospect. Okay, so let's stop share and go into question and answer. I also want to take a look at some of the things that we could be talking about during the question and answer. So have you thought about financial sustainability in the grant seeking process before? Does this bring new considerations to mind about how you will seek funding in the future? Okay, so let's go ahead and answer any questions that you have and kind of think about sustainability and anything that's new to you right now, or things that come to mind that you'd like to talk about. Okay, so how long is a credibility statement typically? That really depends on the different parameters that your different funders are putting out. So maybe there's a word limit on your proposal, and you can kind of figure out from there how much you can put into each different part. So in order to fit all of the relevant details into your proposal within a certain word limit, that's going to guide how long that statement should be. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. And are there other questions? Okay, so there we go. I think you should be able to talk, Serena. Do you want to try and use your mic?
Yeah, sure. So my question is, we have a wide variety of programs, and some of the programs operate at a surplus and some operate at a deficit. And so we use, I mean, our whole budget kind of balances out, but those are the sort of things like when I've gone and tried to, when I've been considering grant applications in the past, I guess, I've been looking at like how do you address that sustainability question when it comes to that sort of situation where it's like, this is our sustainability, but it's dependent on this other program.
That sounds like it's really context driven, and especially in the current time. So like, we know that a lot of nonprofits currently are working really hard to survive through COVID. And so there might be a lot more juggling right now than there ever used to be of various funds. So be really honest and open about that situation. A lot of people are experiencing that. It's pretty common. So other than that, if there's a specific reason why you maybe needed to shuffle funds around, maybe an unexpected cost came up, I would just be really genuine about that so that when maybe the funder wants to know how the money was spent, where it went to, if they require any documentation of that, you can honestly and openly talk about how it went to different things. And again, it's super context driven. So I need to think about it a specific situation, but that does not strike me as a unique difficulty. And you might even talk to other organizations that do similar work to your own, whether they be in Oregon or in a different state. Ask them, have you come across a situation where you're finding that there is a surplus or a deficit in different areas? How did you document that? How did you communicate about that to the funder? And what were the responses that you got?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So was there anything else that folks had questions about? We'll let silence happen for a little bit just to make sure I'm not passing anybody over who's just thinking right now. Okay, so let's go back and here we go. And so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Foundation directory online. It may take me a moment to log back in. It may have timed out on me. So this would be a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit while I'm making sure that we have an option to just jump right in. So anybody that has a question that wants to kind of talk about something that's new to them, raise your hand and I will unmute you. Okay, I'm going to hop in and make sure that we're still logged in. Oh, awesome. Okay. Okay, so one way to make this a little bit more engaging is if anybody wants to unmute and start asking questions, I can search based on your questions so that it's relevant to at least one person here as we're going through. If I don't see any hands raised, I'm just going to go ahead and do a general search and get us looking at all the different tools. So again, as we saw last time, though there are a lot of options and so many things to look at, news updates, and you can also see hints and tips for searching the FDO if you wanted a recorded guide. But we're going to go into the advanced search and filters. And the two things that are going to be most useful for you to begin your search with are your subject area and geographic focus. So what is it you're working on and where is it happening? So let's see, maybe we're talking about health. And let's see, holistic medicine, maybe. And let's see, I want to take a quick look at the chat and see what's going on there. Okay, someone's asking, or Serena's asking, can you search for tech investment support? I imagine that's relevant to most nonprofits right now. Awesome, let's look for that. So tech investment support. Okay, we'll ditch that and do a new search. There we go. And so sometimes there's a need to kind of think about what categories are here and how to find exactly what it is you're looking for within the categories that exist. And let's see if we can also do okay. So the words that come to mind are more like infrastructure and development. Let's try information and communications. And if this doesn't turn up what we're looking for, I can always begin a new search and find something that's a little bit more relevant to what my specific search is. And Serena, I'm wondering if you are thinking about maybe also operating funding support as well as technology development. Okay, yeah, right on. So we might do a couple of searches and we'll see what we find. Okay. So yeah, this is more like people who are providing tech support to communities. However, some of these funders I can already see might be a little bit more general than others. So like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they fund a lot of different projects and they might have a lot of different funding initiatives. So it could be really good to look into that. The view that we want to be in is view all. Take a look there because we have more options to select anybody we're interested in and download an Excel file of all the data associated with each of those, or download PDFs. So let's take a look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we started out with what we're doing and where we're doing it, which is also should be related to our mission statement. And these are funders that are related to those particular types of projects that should relate to the funder's mission. And we're going to click on this. So what are they funding? And this is a historical account of what they have funded in the past. So this does not reflect what they're going to fund in the future. Reason being is that the Foundation Directory Online has found that past funding indicates kind of a trajectory of what you can expect to continue in the future. Again, COVID really has changed a lot of what's been happening for a lot of organizations in the past year. So you might see a lot more like operation funding support become available from foundations and grant makers now, as opposed to how much used to be available in the past, which was a lot less. And that has been a concerted effort to make sure that as many nonprofits and their projects survive as possible through the pandemic. But here we can see in the past that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has funded health, international relations, education, community and economic development, and the list goes on. we can also see who they've funded and what projects those organizations were working on that received funding and where those recipients are. So let's see, maybe we want to see a list of all of the recipients. So we can kind of scroll through and not go through one little bit at a time. So let's see if there's something that looks like it might be similar to the organization that maybe Serena is part of. So Serena, I would like to unmute you if I can. And as we look through together, maybe you can point out whether something looks similar enough to what you do, or maybe looks close enough to our location. Let's, Serena, you are there, and there we go. So Serena, are you able to talk?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I accidentally ended sharing there for a sec, but we're back. So when you're looking through this list, is there anything there that kind of strikes you as like, oh, that looks like they might do something similar to what we do?
I mean, when you're scrolling through, instead of looking at the organization, I'm looking more to the right, where it says what it is that they do. They have mobile communications, international development, those sort of things.
Yeah.
It looks like the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences might be relevant, but I don't know necessarily that Bangalore, India is really gonna be.
Okay. So, and it could be worth looking at that anyway. Even if it's a
Right.
very different place, it might be a similar purpose.
Right.
So should I scroll up or down to see where you're looking?
It's right next, well, down a little bit lower.
Okay, so
Right there.
okay. So let's go ahead and click on that. And okay, so they were working on computer science, bridging the digital divide, internet access, mental health care, psychology, and behavioral science. So that is less about like operational support and more about what services they're providing to the public. But
Right.
I'm also thinking, let's go back here, go to another search. There we go. That is what I want to click on. And let's try it maybe off. Nope. So tech. So
Assistive
let's,
technology might be relevant, or
and again, yeah, the research process might take a little bit, and that's why I'm around to help.
mhm.
But okay, so assistive technology. And let's see, additional filters. So under support strategy, what is it that you're looking for? So if you're looking for something that's not maybe direct cash or program support, but maybe it's operational support, we can kind of see that here.
Right. And what had come to mind initially is just the so many organizations operating in a virtual space right now. Whether it's providing support in that space or connecting to clients in that space.
Okay, so does that kind of change what it is you're looking for?
No, I think that general support would probably be applicable under that.
Okay. Oh, so we need to redo our search a little bit. Okay, so let's try. So maybe your organization does a particular thing and it needs general support. So would you say that you fit under
We fit under mental health. That's what our mission is, centered around mental health specifically, but
maybe family services as well?
yeah.
Okay. So family services in Oregon, general support. Okay, that's a little bit better.
Yes.
So, and it makes sense to me that under this search, Oregon Community Foundation came up because they have been one of the main organizations spearheading funding for sustaining nonprofits through the pandemic. So they've been trying to collect a general fund for that. Totally makes sense that they would pop up. Other people, the Jackson Foundation is in Portland. Yeah, this looks a lot more promising. So thank you for walking with me through a little bit of the frustration that we go through as we kind of engage the research process.
Thank you for doing it for us, showing us how it all works.
Oh yeah. So I just clicked on view all. Okay, Meyer Memorial Trust is coming up. I know I'm familiar with them. They have also been part of that effort. The Ford Family Foundation. Yep, we're starting to see more local foundations, smaller family foundations that have been working in this region to support nonprofits through the pandemic and using general support to do that. So let's take a look at one of these profiles and look at what it does and how it works. So Meyer Memorial Trust. We're going to see a few different things up here. I'm going to draw your attention up to the top right. These are the tools that are going to help you figure out how to keep the information that you have found. The FDO will not retain your searches, so you need to download the information before you log out. One way to do that is to get a PDF. That PDF is going to contain everything that is on this profile. And it will have links that you can follow. It'll contain all of that info. You could email a PDF to yourself. Let's see, and if we were in the view where we could see a list, then we would have the Excel document option to get data about all of our selected organizations. So what does all of this mean? So we're going to see up here, you can see the organization's website. Devour all of that information. If you think they're a good prospect, know everything that they are saying about themselves. Take a look at LinkedIn. Who from that organization is on LinkedIn? And what are they saying about their organization and the work that they're doing? Find out if you're connected to anybody in that organization. If you can use your network to network into talking to someone at the Meyer Memorial Trust, if you think they're a good prospect, then that would be amazing. Find out, is there a public forum you can join? Is there a person you should be talking to? There are a lot of different opportunities to connect. Who's who is going to be like a list of who is on their staff or on their board. Again, maybe you know somebody, or maybe somebody in your organization knows someone in that list. and contact info for the organization that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and click on Who's Who to kind of see what that looks like. So there's a list, and you can see not everybody has a LinkedIn profile, or maybe it's not necessarily showing on the FDO, but those who do, you can click on and kind of take a look and see, do I know any of these people? Share the list with people in your organization. Do people you work with know someone on this list? Okay, oop, I'm gonna come back here. Back. And what are they funding? So community and economic development, human services, human rights, environment, education. Again, things that are being funded in 2020 and 2021, that won't be available to see until maybe next year, when all the past funding is updated on the FDO. And I think we're going to start seeing some trends toward operational funding, because that was a really big thing. You can see over here, where in the United States is most of the funding going to? The darkest green is where most is going to. So it's a lot on the West Coast and a lot in Oregon. What are the size of grants that they typically give? So we can see the smallest number of grants that they give are in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Up from there is the $5,000 range. And the most number of grants that they give is within the $100,000 to $500,000 range. And down here you can see each subject with a little bit more detail and the funding priorities. You can see per state who was funded, and you can view the grants in a little bit more detail, like the descriptions of the grants and what they were meant for. Not all will show what the grant was specifically used for, but a decent number will. And we go down here. Again, you're going to see some really useful information here. What's the most common grant amount? $50,000. And where is it going to? And generally, what is it being used for? So we're going to see youth services, student retention, family services, housing services, and we can go into view all. So you can see we're kind of drilling further and further down into the details of this organization, of what they're funding, how they're funding, what projects are being funded. So the Maslow Project has been funded, which I think is similar to what you're doing, Serena. Like your organization maybe does some similar things. Is that right?
We serve similar populations. They primarily are serving homeless youth and families, and that's where that student retention comes in. Equal opportunity and education, all of those make perfect sense for like those are very mission driven subjects for sure for that organization.
Okay, super cool. And I'm gonna click on Family Forward Oregon, because like they specifically look like they got funding for family services. So let's look at that. Nice, we have more than a couple of words in the description. So for operating support of this organization working to establish paid sick days, paid family leave, workplace flexibility, equal pay for equal work, rights for domestic workers, retirement security, and accessible, affordable childcare for all in the state of Oregon. So we can see operating support was one of the things that was funded, which is exactly what you were looking for. So we know that this could be a really good prospect that we want to probably download the profile and bring that back to the organization. So a really good plan of action is for like one person in an organization to be tasked to find prospect funders. And maybe they are supposed to bring 8 or 10 different funders to the table for discussion, so that maybe 3 or 4 of those can be agreed upon for a grant application cycle. So yeah, that is a pretty good breakdown of the Foundation Directory Online, what it does and how it works. You can also go into Pathways, and that's a visual representation of where money is going to and where it's coming from in a particular organization. So we've got this little legend up here that shows what it is that's being represented. So the green is the foundations, the orange is the recipients. I'm gonna take a sip of water. And the directional arrows are showing where the money is flowing to and from. So you can see that there are funds that are going into the Oregon Community Foundation. And then there's also this really vast network of different organizations where money is flowing from. And you can click into this if you're really curious, like, oh, I didn't realize that they were part of that community of funding. I really want to know more about that. For example, I was just recently learning about Craft 3. So they're funding a lot of startups that have non-traditional like business models. And then we can see for Craft 3, where is funding going for them? So they're getting funding from Bill and Melinda Gates in order to send that out into broader communities. So this is more of a bird's eye view of where money is going and what organizations are working with one another, and kind of get a sense of what the ecosystem is within the organization that maybe you think is a good fit. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I would love to answer any questions that come up. Let's see what's in the chat. Okay, so Nicole is asking, excuse me, can you remind me, this resource is something we would have access to on our own or no? Yeah, for sure. I'm happy that I was able to help, Karen. Apologies that my voice is getting a little froggy. Anyhow, I do want to share that there is that information request form that we saw at the beginning of the program today. And that is how I can do some research for you. And that can be the beginning of maybe a book a librarian appointment. You can come into the library, but it is not remote capable. And that means you could not access the database from your home. Right now, as part of our agreement with FDO, I am working from home, but since I represent the library, I am permitted as a librarian under that contract to share this resource with you. So let's see. Okay, right on. So I'm going to share in the chat. So there is the request form in the chat, and then the resource handout that I was talking about earlier. If you want to go ahead and open those up in your browser and maybe bookmark them. And I would ask, maybe if you fill out that request form, send me an email. I haven't been getting emails that it's been filled out or that somebody has made a submission, so I've just been reminding myself to check. So, but if you would do me the favor of sending an email, if you do fill out that form, that would be amazing. That is my email address. Okay. I'm really glad that so many of you got so much out of this group. This is a biannual program series, so it will happen again in the winter. And if you know of anybody who's also in a grant writing capacity, let them know that this will happen again, that they can learn right along with the next cohort and gain the skills that they need to continue the projects that they're doing and the services that they're providing. So I'm going to go ahead and close out if there are no more questions. Let's see. Serena is saying the directory is such a wonderful resource. I wish we could access it from home. I do too. But I'm glad the library made the investment for the community. Very much the same here. Yeah, thank you everybody. Be well. Thank you for being here. And do connect with me if you have additional questions, or if you find that you're looking for a resource that you're not sure where to locate. Yeah, happy to help with all of that. Enjoy your evening, and I look forward to talking with you all again.